The title for this presentation is Table for Two, an exploration of a multi-genre parallel interactive narrative in virtual reality. I am Delwyn Jude Remedios, and my research supervisors are Professor Deepak John Mathew from the Indian Institute of Technology, Hyderabad, India, and Professor Max Schleser from Swinburne University of Technology, Melbourne, Australia. Table for Two is a short parallel interactive narrative in virtual reality which pivots around conversations across 3 tables within an urban cafe. Each table has a unique genre such as romance, drama, and supernatural, taking place seamlessly in the same cafe. However, there is a connection to the events taking place on other tables. Table for Two is designed to encourage the navigator to teleport between tables and to engage in multiple viewings of the same experience. Parallel narrative has been addressed by a variety of names such as network narrative by Bodwell in 2006, hyperlink cinema by Quad in 2005, smart film by Peters in 2008, and parallel narratives by Aronson in 2010. Aronson describes parallel narratives as several separate narratives running in parallel, often involving non-linearity, time jumps, large cast, or all of these. Parallel narratives have been additionally observed in early cinema in The Kleptomaniac by Edwin Porter in 1905. Another significant innovation in cinematic parallel narrative was found in the film Rashomon by Akira Kurosawa in 1950. Rashomon experimented with non-linear narrative method by describing a common event using multiple points of view. A key breakthrough in parallel narrative was found in the film Pulp Fiction by Tarantino in 1994. Booker mentions that the film was so commercially successful that it virtually demolished the boundary between independent and Hollywood cinema. Following the success of Pulp Fiction, it is observed that parallel narratives are rapidly trending in mainstream cinema. Booker mentions that the increasing fragmentation of the postmodern film can in many ways be seen as an extension of the older montage techniques and indeed of the evolution of film as a medium itself. This leads to the inquiry if mainstream cinema is undergoing yet another reinvention through the progression of parallel narrative. It is understood that virtual reality is one of the latest disruptions in cinema that requires explorations in narratives. Dali, in a study on Cinema 3.0, asserts that the increase of interaction in cinema has grown with technology. She explains that a user is expected to play the active role of a navigator in comparison to a passive viewer. This concept is similar with the representation of parallel narratives in cinema, as the user is expected to solve the pieces of a puzzle in order to understand the plot. This leads to the question if the user could be addressed as a navigator in a parallel narrative. Several studies on VR grammars propose guidelines for the viewers to look at intended areas in a VR environment. However, it is argued that a VR experience should give the viewer the freedom to choose her viewing direction. This freedom for the viewer can be addressed by experimenting with the collaboration of parallel narrative and virtual reality. The limitations of cuts and editing techniques in VR work as an advantage to represent parallel narratives simultaneously in a VR environment through the concept of parallel interactive narratives in VR. We further refer to the user of this experience as a navigator due to the interactive role they perform. Parallel interactive narratives in VR lets the navigator teleport from one narrative location to another, while the remaining narrative locations run in parallel sequences, irrespective of the navigator's presence. The navigator of such an experience can teleport through gaze or gesture selection of pinpoint areas in the VR environment. Therefore, an abbreviation of the term parallel interactive narratives in virtual reality is suggested as PinVR. The reviews of immersive and interactive experiences have aided the positioning of PinVR on a scale of interactivity. The unique feature of a PinVR is that the navigator's progression results in a time lapse in each parallel scene. We explained the navigator's experience in a hypothetical 4-minute PinVR timeline. Let's assume the navigator starts the experience in narrative 1. After 30 seconds, she teleports to narrative 2 with a seamless gaze or gesture. At 2 minutes, she teleports to narrative 3, and at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, she teleports to narrative 1. The teleportation time period can change based on the navigator's choices. From this figure, it is understood that all the narrative timelines will lapse, irrespective of where the navigator is currently immersed. We argue that such an experience is corresponding to reality. Regardless of where we are currently located, other timelines in the world run in parallel. Using screen production inquiry and reflective documentation method, we further discuss the pre-production process of the practice space VR artifact table for 2. Each character description was plotted on a whiteboard. The character descriptions were detailed further with features and wardrobes in the character design process. While the initial concept had 360-degree cameras plotted in the middle of the tables, the test shoot revealed that the navigator would require to rotate at a 180-degree axis regularly to toggle between the two characters in conversation. These issues were resolved by revising the layout of the 360-degree cameras, cast, and space. Dooley, in her paper on script writing for VR experiences, derives that there is no standard approach of writing scripts for VR. Just as methods of filmmaking have their own processes, so should the medium of VR have its own processes customized for the medium. The script writing process for Table for Two includes multiple iterations. It was initially approached in a traditional format where each parallel script was written in separate documents. The navigator could read one script at a time without correlating the events of the other parallel narratives. This limitation was addressed by plotting the scripts in a tabular format. A concern was raised if longer scripts would work with this format. For example, if there were 10 parallel narratives, the distance between the first and the 10th script would widen. The inputs from the crew members were taken into consideration and the tabular format was altered into a spherical display. However, the converging lines in the sphere distorted the script information at the poles, due to which an alternative approach was considered. The tabular format script was dissected into segments and mapped onto the surface of a water container. The cylindrical form of the container provided the flexibility for the navigator to rotate the bottle in any direction as per their convenience. A summary of the cast and crew revealed that such a display offers ease of use and would be useful on set and during rehearsals, while the tabular format could be taken home for independent rehearsals. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it was observed that several people were growing increasingly familiar with multiple screen interface of online meetings. Drawing inspiration from this, the storyboard was also presented to the members in a split-screen manner. The rehearsals were initially done in pairs and later as groups. The rotating cylindrical PinVR display was used during rehearsals and was available on set as recommended by the participants. Romance, supernatural, and corporate drama film posters were grouped and arranged behind the respective tables. The corporate drama table additionally had motivational quotes arranged on the wall. Behind the waiters' table included film posters related to sports. The lighting of the three main tables were enhanced with brightness for emphasis. White table mats were also used to reflect the light on the characters' faces. The camera operators were acting as additional guests in the café, however were focusing on the shoot. During the first two takes, the director was outside the café and was not able to gauge if the shoot had come out well. An improvisation was added, and the director additionally became an actor on set during the third and fourth take. He was pretending to read a book, however was paying attention to the sounds and acting. These decisions give a new insight into the role of a cinematographer and a director of a PinVR experience. The future scope of this project is to complete the post-production of Table for Two and test it with appropriate navigators. This research is an experiment to explore alternative storytelling approaches in virtual reality through parallel narrative.